I had to drop it just because of how much more useful of a model spiral dynamics is and how many limitations Myers-Briggs has. Like there's so many
Okay.
times. Go ahead.
Question. Do you, because I've been trying to dabble in with Myers-Briggs just because I think it's like more tools in the toolbox, you know. But I ultimately kind of gave up and now I'm going on to turquoise. I'm just like, I'm not like at, but do you see any like correlation or like um any way you could like mesh the two together possibly? Or are they
I think
completely independent of each other?
I think something that helps with Myers-Briggs is kind of the foundations. For example, just understanding the difference between people who are intuitive versus thinking,
Mm-hmm.
or you know, that going external or being internal.
Sure.
Those things
Yeah.
those things are solid concepts to understand, but I think that the conclusions that they come to once you've identified, you know, every one of those four things that you are spending most of your time in, I don't think that that can really identify your personality accurately because people fluctuate between them. You know, I for example, I would consider myself more of an extroverted person, but just about every extroverted person needs that time to be introverted, and they're going to be doing introverted things as well. And
Yeah.
so I think Myers-Briggs has built itself up as a kind of dichotomy where you have a spectrum and you're either on one end or on the other end,
Mm-hmm.
and whatever end you're on defines what personality type you have. But people are all over that gradient, really. And so getting a real accuracy out of that is tough, and I haven't seen that model actually be as useful. You know, it doesn't really, for me, every time I've used Myers-Briggs to identify what I'm doing or what someone else is doing, it hasn't really led to any major insights or let me have any predictions about why they might act another way. But with spiral dynamics, you know, I can see their core worldview, their core beliefs, and out of that, speculate why they're acting a certain way.
Yeah. Yeah, because I was back in like my really ingrained yellow days. I was like trying to combine spiral dynamics with Myers-Briggs and the anagram to make this like giant beast of a model.
Mhm.
And I just kind of haven't really worked on that at all. It's like still up for grabs. Like if anyone wants to try to figure it out, I was trying to make this like multi-dimensional model with multiple spirals on it, including the spirals and anagrams twisting and tests. But that's interesting. A good perspective you gave me. Thank you.
I think a lot of the time when trying to build something like that, it might be better to keep it simpler. You want to find whatever underlying truths each one of the models has and pull just that out and kind of leave the rest. Because if you pull in too much, it dilutes the idea of the model. People have a harder time using it for anything, right? Because it's just so much information they're being bombarded with.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that.
There's so many models that you can just paste onto spiral dynamics that really align with it. Like there seems to be like the number 7, for example, seems to come back so often. Like 7
Hierarchy.
stages.
Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yeah, a lot of development models.
Mm-hmm.
This thing like the chakra system. I also feel like that really resonates with spiral dynamics.
It's like a little bit. There are some things
Read hard.
that it does. I think we talked about this, right?
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
a little bit, yeah.
What was I going to say?
Not all of them are aligned with spiral dynamics. You were going to say that?
Yeah, yeah. Like it's like kind of here and there, but
Yeah.
there's some correlations and then there's some non-correlations. Yeah.
I think you can find pieces of spiral dynamics in that fit neatly into the chakra system and vice versa, but they don't align perfectly.
Mm-hmm. So I'm just like interested, Chris, like what stage of the spiral would you say you're at, like roughly?
Okay, so that's a big question. I think I try to not place myself, just because people, when trying to place themselves, often make the mistake of placing themselves about 2 stages away from where they're actually at,
Sure.
which is a huge jump. I mean, from green to turquoise, those are
Oh
completely
yeah.
different people, right?
Yeah.
But and another thing to keep in mind there is, just because of the way spiral dynamics works, you're never at a stage per se, but you move between different stages. So like, depending on what I'm doing, I'll be working in one stage versus another.
Oh yeah, it's not like I'm stage red 100% of my day.
Right.
That would be exhausting.
So I like to use the verbiage of where you spend the most of your time, where you're primarily working out of, and then talk about a stage. For me personally, I think I've seen a little bit of every stage within myself. So my assumption is that I've progressed through most, if not all, of these, at least the identified ones. Which is actually why one big interest of mine is trying to figure out what might be following turquoise, to see if, whatever that is, I may have also gotten a glimpse of. But yeah, I think I've spent a large portion of my life working out of yellow. And so just because I'm fairly certain of that, my assumption is that I might be spending a good amount of my time in turquoise now, but I can't be sure. I have no idea.
Yeah, well, it seems like you know a decent amount about the chakra system. And you've been studying spiral dynamics, which is stage yellow already, and you know about Myers-Briggs, which is kind of yellowish, like psychology in a nutshell.
So I think one thing that that people in yellow experience is this this just burst of having to learn everything around them, just studying left and right, any topic, everything continuously, like almost like an addiction. There used to be this web tool called StumbleUpon, for example, that would you'd have a little bar on your browser, and you click a button and it would bring you to an interesting website. And I remember spending hours and hours every day learning everything that I could about everything. And it just compiles such a huge, like, mass of knowledge. And I realized, okay, like, when I was in school, I didn't learn even a fraction of what I'm learning now, like those things. So yeah, I think that's a good sign that you're moving into yellow, is if you're just really heavy on studying every walk of life, every little thing that you can get, because all those different pieces of information, no matter how far they are from each other, how unrelated they may seem, end up tying together in some way. So yeah.
One thing I did was I spent about 2 years basically all the time in a music studio, in my garden. And basically what I'd do was I would listen to audiobooks like all the time about stuff I wasn't even interested in during this kind of a stage where it's like, so there might be something about knitting or something like that. I remember Grey's Anatomy, just hearing like that it makes sense. Like what they're talking about makes sense. I don't know what they're talking about. It's crazy. So yeah. I think we should talk about like the future, or like, I don't know, about the like technology right now, what we see.
Have you guys heard of Ray Kurzweil?
Yes.
No.
Yeah.
Okay, so like that concept of I mean, he was obviously a person who spent his life using some of the rules and laws that he knew about technology, predicting what would be happening in the future. and a lot of those predictions have come true
Come true.
within about 5 years of whenever he predicted them. Moving along that timeline, by the year 2040-ish, 2042, I think it is, the prediction is that man and machine are going to merge so closely together that they will be just about indistinguishable from each other. At which point, right now our technology is kind of enhancing on an exponential curve. So just getting like every year you're seeing more technological advancements than in all of history combined almost, So by the time man and machine will be merged together, we'll be able to enhance our own thinking through those same rules that computation works by. And at that point, we're going to be using that to come up with new technologies. And the rate of growth is so explosive that there's no way to make any predictions beyond that point. So where we could be in just 20 years time could be a completely different type of civilization, like way beyond anything that we have even fathomed in science fiction.
Yeah. Like our current technological development is, I actually think is still very limited. I think in like when for example, the rate at which technology grows is still faster than the living conditions for the rest of the world, you could say, or for most of the world. Like we still have tribesmen, we still have like a lot of red countries all around the world, but our technology is developing so fast. So one of my concerns for the future is that there's gonna be such a big wealth inequality, and you're gonna have one part of the world that is going to be fully integrated with this technology because they can afford it and they have already developed it there, and then that might be the cause of even more inequality. And that's kind of one of my concerns, and I think something we should really look out for.
I have a comment. So, have I mentioned the difference between inner technology versus outer technology?
To us, yeah.
Not to me.
Yeah. So the more I was like reading about Jovello Melchizedek, he talks about that. So inner technology is like all the amazing things that literally just your body can do, and your mind and your consciousness just can do without anything. And then like outer technology is like, for example, like using a heater to heat your house. Okay. That's like example of outer technology. But if you have a inner technology, you can just like regulate your own body temperature. So that brings me to like the things. I don't know where I heard this, but someone said it to me and it kind of stuck. It might have been on some other podcast, but it was like in the future there would be like 3 types of people roughly. There would be like the people who are like really with this whole outer technology thing, like this very like chips or whatever, like using outer technology to enhance
Chips
life.
aren't those like inner technologies? Like
they're merging.
Outer technology would be like planting a chip inside your body to like trigger your garage door to open, so you don't have to.
Okay, but so what would be an inner technology then?
No, inner technology doesn't need anything made. You already have all the things right at you from birth. Okay.
So as in like your heart beating all of the time. It's like inner technology.
Yeah, like literally just the heart is a powerful tool. Many people just don't know about it. And then so like when a yogi or like when a monk or whatever can like sit outside and he's just melting a circle of snow around him, like that's an example. A lot of like the esoteric teachings or stuff like that. And then the third one, so there's like the inner technology, outer technology, and then we just blow ourselves up and we just like go extinct because of like war or whatever. So yeah, I'm like on the I'm rooting for like the inner technology because it's more there's more potential for it because we're already like perfect beings.
Yeah, I
I
agree too.
I fully disagree. I
With
think I think that anyone who's in the coming year is going to be fully aligned with inner technology and not really taking on all this extra technology that we're creating outside of us is going to be completely outgunned in any conflict that that comes afterwards. I mean, we're talking people who are using technology to enhance their own brains, their own physicality. I'm actually really curious to think about like where genetic manipulation would lie in between it, because you would have those changes from birth in your body, but it would be an outer technology that's created them. I think human bodies are far from perfect. I think we have a lot of things that are
because of outer
left
technology.
over. I think we have a lot of leftover junk from previous stages of evolution that the body doesn't need anymore. I mean, we have entire organs or parts of organs that the body doesn't really need to function with, and organs that are very faulty in our body. I mean, we have a line in our DNA code, so to speak, that basically says after so and so many reproductions, we're going to stop working. It's built into our DNA for us to die, and it wouldn't necessarily have to be that way if we kind of took over the control of how our bodies are working. And at that point, you know, if we're able to do things like upload our brains, our conscious experience onto a computer, if that's a possible thing in the future, which we don't know if we can do that yet, but then what use does a body necessarily have if we are able to reproduce all the same experiences within another body, or even have the freedom of moving from one body to the next, being in a world that we can create with just our consciousness alone in a virtual reality where we can do anything that we want.
This parallels perfectly with what I was saying about imagination. Oh, right. Oh, yeah. So literally what you're just saying there, can anyone see that? Everyone can see that, right? Like that parallels. Like we're going to end up gods.
At that point, you can do whatever you want. And I mean, you have a good point. We don't know at this point if we are in a virtual reality created by a previous version of ourselves or something like that. We have no clue. It's brain in a jar theory where we just don't know what's outside of us.
Yeah, that could already be the case.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean,
I just have a comment again. I would just like recommend checking out what Drum Below says. He says that like if you're stuck in a body, that's actually like prison. And what immortality really is like consistent consciousness and no loss of memories. All right. So like if this physical body dies, but the memories are kept and I just reincarnate to another body, but the memories are kept. Did I really die? You can't see my hands. No, I wouldn't say so, because like it's just a continuous stream of consciousness.
Yeah.
So, I agree with that fully.
Depends who we are. If we are consciousness alone, then we are always alive.
But we don't know if that's how that works on a biological level, right? Like we don't know if people necessarily reincarnate with memories, even if there is a soul outside of the body that moves from one body to the next upon death. We don't know if any memories will be kept. The evidence would show that they aren't, because otherwise every child that's born, or most of the children that are born, would have memories of their past lives, and we don't necessarily see that.
Yeah.
I've seen examples.
Yeah, the thing is, like, there is.
Do you remember anything from any of your previous lives?
Thing is, like, there is a
but
societal
you
conditioning.
wouldn't-
There's so many factors like affecting this. So like we got the societal conditioning, So maybe I don't know, who knows.
Yeah, so like
Also-
what do you see as memory? Because I agree with both of you, actually. I know that there is, for example, some physical memory stored, for example, certain fears, or fears for snakes, or fears for bears. This is all inherited. This is like we are born with a fear for snakes or a fear for
That's a good point.
yeah, whatever. So that's kind of, you could say, ancestral memory, but in the same, like in the way of having individual memory of, like, for example, oh yeah, my previous life I was Billy or something like that. Yeah, I don't know about that, because I think that for you, Connor, to be Connor, let's say, you have to forget everything that you are outside of Connor. You can only remember that you are Connor, let's say. Does that make any sense? It's like you wouldn't be able
Oh,
to remember another,
yeah.
or like your previous person's life, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to be who you are now. Like there isn't like space for two psyches in one body, or maybe actually in some exceptions there are. I think maybe like a Siamese. So how do you say that?
Wow, that's real.
Twin.
Like they do believe that they're different people, but they're the
Yeah,
same
like I
body.
was thinking about it. Yeah, I feel like that's like two souls, or kind of like two, maybe not two souls, but like two psyches in like
Well,
one.
and then there's DID, dissociative identity disorder, which is commonly known as split personalities, where they do just have different people living in the same brain, right, in the same mind. But I'm really curious to hear what Connor was going to say.
Oh, I was just like thinking of what I was gonna say. It's the old like I was raising my hand, but I forgot what you were saying. So I was remembering what I was saying about the constant stream of consciousness. So this is just all coming from Drunvalo because I've been studying him for like maybe half a year now. So the Merkaba, it's okay. So backing up a little bit more, actually, when they, I don't know if you can like research this, but this is what he said. People that went in space like the first time, they actually like lost part of their memories and they kind of went crazy. I think I mentioned that in the chat a long time ago. Do you remember that?
No, but that's crazy.
Yeah, like I did some research on that actually after seeing that. I think they did have some memory loss when they came back.
Yeah. Okay.
There's also
So.
like radiation in space.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was the reason or something.
Well, then that really makes a question of like where are the memories kept? Okay, and then a book I read before, it's by Robert Bruce. He basically also said the point that like memories aren't kept in the brain. They're kept like, I don't know where he said they're kept, but the whole idea is that like someone can get brain surgery and removed half of their brain and still remember everything. Okay. So, and then what Drumbelow says is that the memories are kept in an electromagnetic field. Okay. Now the
Kind of
electromagnetic
like the
field,
cloud.
yeah, basically like a cloud. And so most people use the electromagnetic field of the earth and their memories are kept in there. I don't know how exactly, but that's what he said. What you can do is if you have an electromagnetic field around you, precisely like something like the Merkaba spinning, which is like if you look at the Leonardo Cannon circle around him, that's the sphere around the body. And now your memories are kept inside the Merkaba field. And if that's spinning at the right speed for long enough time, it stays spinning indefinitely. So even after like wherever you go, your memories are kept after death into the next life. Yeah, there's a whole show on guide.com about this guy who remembers his past life. It's really interesting. I think it's called Initiation.
I think with this,
I
I'll just make this point.
want that to be real so bad.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I mean it's hard to talk about or even speculate about these topics, just because with things like this, evidence is just really hard to get. It's just really
Yeah.
difficult to
Subject.
verify if any of this is real or not, right?
Like,
So
what?
I don't know.
Like you can use tools to see someone's Merkaba spinning, like scientific tools.
Well, you have to show us. You have to
Like what?
to send it.
I don't know exactly the tools, but that's just what he said in his workshops. Like, and then if you have someone that's really psychic, it's hard. But if you have someone that's really psychic, you can see their Merkaba spinning. I've actually had astral projection experiences where I ask the person if I can see their Merkaba, and I start seeing the Merkaba like these lines spinning around them. It's really something. Okay, I'm
So-
just like getting to.
Also, like the thing
Yeah,
is,
you
is our barometer for what's real. You know, our like, what is that though? Because our experience is always subjective.
Yeah, it's just always
Have-
going meta, David.
Have you guys ever gotten into lucid dreaming?
Connor, defo. Right? I haven't so much. I don't think.
I've tried it. I had the sense within the dream a couple of times that it was a dream. Yeah. But
Yeah. I mean, obviously, like lucid dreaming is, realizing that you're in the dream and then being able to work with them because you are now aware. If you can do that without, waking up as soon as you realize you're dreaming, you can do some really interesting things within the space of your own mind. For example, you can ask any individual in the dream questions about yourself, and you will get honest answers. So it's a really easy way to like
Really?
draw out things from yourself. Yeah.
Coming from your own
have
mind.
you tried that? Do you have?
Yeah. I used to spend some time lucid dreaming.
Okay.
Um,
So does this feel like, does lucid dreaming feel the same as the experience that you have now? Like what you see now, does it feel similar for like when you're lucid dreaming? And also like the ability to make a choice to come up with, for example,
it's hard to say, because when you're in your dream, your understanding of what's realistic, what's possible, kind of fades a bit. So you can be in a lucid dream and or you can be in a dream and like aliens attack and everything, and like Godzilla is moving through the city, which I'm mentioning these examples because I've had both of them in one dream before. And it seems completely normal to you and perfectly like realistic that could just happen, right?
Yeah.
But it takes you waking up to go back and think about like, wait, was that actually a thing? When you're in the dream, everything just seems really real, even if it isn't as real as waking life. So hard to tell if it actually
isn't that
is.
amazing? But like I think that's also a good example of why I have quite of a difficulty believing that you have some memories, let's say, of who you were in your past life. Because in the same way that when you're dreaming, like in order for you to dream, you lose, like you're out of touch with the dreamer, let's say, or like when you immerse yourself in the dream, you're not aware that you're dreaming, unless you're, of course, if you're lucid dreaming, you stumble upon a point where you become lucid in the process. But even there,
Okay.
like how would you, for example, yeah.
So I mean, you can learn to lucid dream by doing what's called reality checks, right? For example, one that I used to do was I would throughout the day, over and over, just whenever I'm walking through a doorway or something, I would just poke my hand.
Wow.
So when I was in the dream, there's no physical body. My finger went right through, and as soon as that happened, I was like, wait a minute, it's not real. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So you can do that stuff. I think light switches are like a common one. Like if you flick light switches every time you see them, in the dream, they're not going to do anything. You flick a light switch, no light is going to turn on and off. And you'll know you're dreaming.
I have it with doors.
I hope
Yeah.
there's somebody on.
Like you push a door and like when you push through it, you're like, okay, shit. This is probably a dream.
Guys,
That makes
my
sense.
my levels of knowing model will really help with this, I think. Because
Oh yeah.
so I'll explain this. Like levels of knowing. Level 1 is just knowing. Level 2, so like everyone, just knowing. Level 2 is knowing that I am knowing. And that's lucid dreaming. Lucid living is knowing that I'm knowing right now. Not many people are.
I've been trying to do that. It's like kind of weird.
It's fucking amazing, right?
You can keep going. It's like
Yeah. It's infinite.
you can be knowing that you're knowing that you're
It's
knowing
like-
that you're knowing that you're knowing. So I just usually just drop it.
An important thing is though,
because it doesn't really get you anywhere.
Yeah. The important thing is that there's the same knowing. So it's not like you don't get
Yeah,
a
it's the
different
same knowing always.
Yeah, always.
So how does that relate?
Well,
So the reason I bring up lucid dreaming,
lucid dreaming is level 2. It's like knowing anything.
so the reason I bring up lucid dreaming is to kind of frame a viewpoint on reality. So when you're in a dream, you know, there's other people in the dream. There's people that you interact with, but you know that since the dream is happening within yourself, all of those other people are you, which is why you can get information about yourself from them, because you know they're just other aspects of you. And I've actually read a lot and heard a lot that, you know, if you point out to people in your dream that you're dreaming, they get really uncomfortable with it, because like,
oh my god,
that's imagine you being in another body inside your dream and realizing you're not real because someone's telling you that, and you know that because you have the same mind. But yeah, all of these people are you, and they're just you don't know what
all
they're thinking.
structures, all particles, all everything.
Yeah, but you don't know what they're thinking. They have their own lives. They go about doing their own things. They make their own decisions, and yet they're all you. And I think that I think it's reasonable to look at waking life in the same way, that every person you is just another incarnation of yourself. We're all kind of like pieces of the same universe that are walking around trying to experience the universe, to just experience ourselves. And so, I mean, everyone thinks different things, has a different experience and stuff, but in a way, we are all just kind of the same person in multiple different bodies. You know, the same entity in everything.
David is loving it.
Yeah.
David. But this realization, I think also the dream is probably the most perfect metaphor that you can take for this. It resembles it so well that just the activity of the dreaming, let's say, generates the idea that there's like a dream world, but of course the only thing there is to the dream world is the activity of dreaming.
Also,
in the same way, I always see it like this, like there's just energy in motion, or like let's say that what energy does is this, let's say it's dreaming, and it's like it's just its activity, or the thing that the energy does. It moves, it takes on, or it appears to take on forms. This is also how I would like to see it, kind of as like clay. So there's only clay, and then the clay can be shaped to any form, you know, but it never locates into a chair, but it can form a chair.
I think a really important thing about this analogy as well, to add to this, is part of the dream is that I am an individual, and so so what happened? What we need to do, and like why people can get offended when it seems like you're in a solipsistic view, where it's like it's only me. That's what it will seem like to them. What we have to do is we have to actually give up a part of our ego, or at least a part of our ego, which is this mind-made self. So,
because like that's another thing. I think what we're talking about is, for example, like this dreaming, etc. Like, what's the point of even talking about all of this stuff? Like, what are we really trying to say here? Because in and of itself, saying the dream is a dream isn't going to change anything. It was always already so. But
we're trying to get into level 2.
I think yeah, the part,
So Peter.
like the individuality, the idea that you're a separate person, I think this is truly at the root of all your
Yeah.
suffering. Let's say is this I, this idea that there's an I, which is the stem, and then the world rests upon that stem. The idea that you just take the stem away, all of the other stuff can just
Yeah.
easily continue. It's like, yeah, like the part where there is most resistance in our life is when we place the I in front of something, or when we claim that, let's say. So I
I
feel like
think
that's kind of what these insights are trying to say in essence, I think.
I think David might recall from the call we were on last week, where I had kind of compared it to being a toe on the body
Oh,
that
dude.
is the universe,
Yeah.
That is
and
it.
we're just a small body part. We're like a finger or a toe or something
Yeah.
that we're realizing that we have control over our body, but that is just a very small fraction of who the extended like self actually is.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah, of course.
now what do we do with that realization? I mean, there's
Yeah.
really two routes that we can go down. We can either be the worst toe in existence and just like lead the body to stumble at every step,
Yeah.
or we can push as hard as we can and propel the body that is ourselves forward and put some motion into it and just be the best part that we can be.
Yeah, if you want.
Reminded me of a analogy. I don't know who said it to me, but it was by some teacher, and he said like when you're at a lower stage of consciousness, like just like pure survival, you're at like a you're like a big toe or something. So like you're just like you just have these like basic uses, but the more you elevate yourself and the more you like work on like meditation or something like that, the more you become like, let's say like the pineal gland of the body, or like the heart chakra or something like that of the body.
This call's gonna end.
Yeah, the more aware you are, the more you can interact with the world around you.
I think what we're
Makes
saying,
sense.
well, it's like the toe believes it's a toe, but we're saying it's also the whole body too. So yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, like it's the whole body. Yeah, that's also why I see myself always as a toenail. Like I'm the toenail of the universe.
Yeah. Whenever
That's
you,
also like why I really don't mind if the toenail gets clipped off or something. I'm not gonna cry, it's just a toenail.
the thing is, when you
Yeah.
throw toenails away, where does it end up? The world. Even if it ended up in space, it's still going to be in whatever. It's still going to be
Yeah.
objects of our consciousness. There's only one
Well, it's just
subject.
an analogy.
Yeah.
Like let's
Yeah,
say
yeah,
the
yeah,
human
yeah.
body is the entire universe. Okay, so like we're just using that analogy.
Chat guy.
You know what I mean?
I know. Say it again.
Like with the whole like Connor's a toenail, David's like a pinky